Good evening, everyone from Colombo, and to our online panelists joining us from Australia, China, the US, as well as Bahrain, the CENTCOM from Bahrain. Welcome to everybody to another event of the Geopolitical Cartographer. Today, we'll be discussing navies in the Indian Ocean, which will be chaired by our founder, patron, and president, Ranil Wickramasinghe. And as you know, the Geopolitical Cartographer started during COVID, so it's quite good that we are once again having webinars, because that was how we started, with a lot of online meetings. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to our chair, who is the former president of Sri Lanka and former six-term prime minister of Sri Lanka as well, Ranil Wickramasinghe.
Good evening, and we look forward to Admiral Pereira conducting discussions. Just a few words by me. What is the geopolitical cartographer? Our focus is on the Indian Ocean. But for us, Indian Ocean starts in the Himalayas and comes down to the Antarctic, because the Sino-Indian interactions in the Himalayas have an effect on what happens in the Indian Ocean, and so does the climate change and the major rivers which come in mainly to the Bay of Bengal, but also onto the Western Indian Ocean. Today's webinar seeks to supplement the Gaul dialogue, and we will also hereafter have another one, which is the Indian Ocean geopolitics and Sri Lanka. There's a lot of interest in Sri Lanka now on geopolitics, so how it be and what we should do. I'm discussing with Admiral Pereira also, and with our help, to start a network of retired naval flag officers. Why? Because the unofficial interactions between them will enable us to reduce tensions from time to time and have a better understanding of what happens. Where Gaul dialogue is for regular serving officers, I think Admiral Pereira will take the lead in seeing how we can start a network of retired naval officers. Doesn't exclude the serving ones, but there can be a more frank discussion and a better understanding of what happens. What the geopolitical cartographer aims is to facilitate a coherent vision for managing the Indian Ocean geopolitics, which is driven by a number of Indian Ocean paradigms. The maritime security, which includes freedom of navigation and sea control, maritime infrastructure, which includes undersea cables, the blue economy, hydrography, which has also now become an issue of geopolitics, ocean health, including fisheries, and climate change. I will deal with just two issues. First is the need to maintain the identity of the Indian Ocean, which has been a center of civilization. Remember the first to come in, the Dutch and the British East India companies had their headquarters in the Indian Ocean, one in Calcutta and the other in Batavia. And after World War II, as we gained independence, first the Colombo Powers meeting was to deal with the Indian Ocean. Then in Bandung, again, we looked at the need for the Indian Ocean, and the ideas there was Indian Ocean Peace Zone was taken forward by Sri Lanka and presented to the UN and accepted in 1971. In Jakarta Concord, when we met, the IORA met in 2017, again, we emphasized Indian Ocean as a peace zone, and thereafter we've accepted the ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific, where I treat the Indian Ocean as a separate entity. We want and we will maintain that separate identity so that we do not always have to be involved in the tensions that arise in the other part. Looking at the Indian Ocean, the GC's assessment is that India will be the economic superpower with ambitions to become a global superpower in a tripolar world. It will also be the lead nations in the region, but having to work with other countries, partnership, especially some of the leading countries like Indonesia, which will have a key role in determining the communications and the sea connectivity between the Pacific and the Indian Ocean. There'll be the Arab countries like Saudi, others would come up. India's multi-alignment of IORA, BRICS, and the Quad is also being reflected in the Indian Ocean. Or maybe the Indian Ocean balancing is being reflected in India's multi-alignment. But India also has a large number of bilaterals and also organizations like the Colombo Conclave, where we have our own arrangements on certain aspects of maritime security. The BRICS too will expand its influence in the Indian Ocean. Today we have South Africa, India, Iran, and Indonesia, with many other countries, including Sri Lanka, applying for membership. The India-China relationship will be the most crucial one in the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean. China has its economic relations through the BRI, and it will have two outlets into the Indian Ocean, as I will describe later. Then I must refer, because we've been very much in the news, on what is called the dual use ports. These are, Hambantota is a commercial port anyone can use. Come tension, no warship will be allowed. And as far as terminals are concerned, yes, Chinese have one terminal there, and Chinese have one terminal in Colombo Harbor together with Adani's and Merck's, and Japanese have funded us. So we do not consider ourselves to be in any way a port that can be used for military use at all. We will not allow it. But China's PLA Farsi fleet will increase its presence. Nevertheless, India will be the largest naval power in the Indian Ocean. So within that background that we will be working, US will have its presence, but it's mainly military. Part of the economic presence may be reduced due to the new tariff system, but nevertheless, this administration shows a willingness to speak to many of the parties which have been ostracized earlier. Last time was North Korea, now we can see Iran, Houthi, so that will have a big impact on the US, will have that impact on the geopolitics of the Indian Ocean. Secondly, what we call the future of the Indian Ocean. We have what's called the Cartographer Indian Ocean Map of 2050. It's basically based on the PricewaterhouseCoopers assessments that 6 neighboring countries of India will be among the 30 richest countries in the world. You will have India, you will have Bangladesh, we will have Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, which most probably may be the 4th or the 5th richest country in the world. So that changes the Bay of Bengal into what I think those in India and Bangladesh know. It was one of the richest regions in the world until the 18th century. In addition to this, under the BRI development, the Western China is in for development, and the developments would be firstly connectivity between Southeast Asia and Western China, the Singapore-Chongqing Economic Corridor, and also the link with the belt which comes from Central Asia, and finally the outlet through Myanmar into the Bay of Bengal. So that brings it a new dimension, where Bay of Bengal will raise its importance, will come in the next 15, 20 years. We also got to keep in mind that there are examinations and discussions going on the Tanzania-Angola Railway, which means you bring in another sea route which comes just above Madagascar and connects you onto the Atlantic, which is another issue, because if you look at the development of Asia and Africa, all those containers can't go through Suez Canal. So in addition, there is also under BRI, the All-Weather Friendship Road in from Gouda. So that's 2 under the BRI. But India is also taking the initiative on 2, which will be very important. The Chaba North-South, International North-South Road, in which most probably Chaba will become, I think, the new capital of Iran, and the India, Middle East, Europe. So there will be 4 new navigational routes coming in, changing structure on the naval patterns in the Indian Ocean. So with this, we are going into a new Indian Ocean paradigm. We have the GC map. I think he will show it at some time with the marks on, but there's one here. I think many of you would be interested. So we looked at both those, but now I will pass it on to Admiral Pereira to take on from me and start the discussion.